this for you. I don't want you to hurt, so I'll give you this hope.
Hello guys, welcome to Freedom Friday from DarianeAwaken.com. I'm Darienne, as usual. It's always me. So, today we're going to be talking about something that I dealt with among millions and millions of people on this planet. Today we're going to talk about depression. So, if you have depression or someone you know has depression, someone you love has depression, and possibly their depression is affecting you, what I would suggest and what I did when I, as an adult, was suffering for many years with depression, I got educated. I really would suggest that. You want to learn every single solitary thing you can about depression and how to really manage it and cope with it. So I found this book. I went into a bookstore when they had those around. They don't really have too many of them now, but I walked into a bookstore and I saw this book sitting on the table, The Depression Cure. And it really intrigued me because I was kind of like, cure? There's no cure for depression. Who do you think you are? So this doctor, PhD, did all of these studies. His name is Stephen Ilardi. Did all of these studies and searched all of these college studies on depression. And he came up with this 6 steps to cure yourself of depression. And he calls it TLC, which for him stands for Therapeutic Lifestyle Change. Now, I mean, I can really attest to all of these things. And once I discovered this, what I realized is that when you're doing these things, if you're staying consistent with them, then you won't have depression. And it really is a depression cure if you're sticking with these 6 things that are extremely, extremely important. Now, I know that this is kind of going a little bit more on the level of humanity rather than I talk a lot more about spirituality. I think that there's a lot of spirituality in this that I don't believe that there's any difference between science and spirituality. I've said that before. But I think there's also this part of us that is a human being. And it's our responsibility to take care of our bodies so that they could be tools for God to use them. And the brain is part of the body, that sort of lower mind, that ego part of us. And when we take care of that and we treat it well, it always will treat us well in return. So I'm going to briefly go through these 6 things. If you really, this is a big recommendation. If you really want to know about depression and you really want to know about how this stuff works in these 6 steps, I don't have all the time in the world to explain the whole book. Purchase this book. I'll give you a link. You could buy this book right from Amazon.com. It'll be right below this video, or you can go on my shop on DarianeAwaken.com. Buy the book. It'll be worth it. Trust me. Education, knowledge is power. So educating yourself on things like this is so important. I really think, and it boggles my mind that still to this day, there are so many millions of people, 1, going untreated with depression, and 2, don't even understand depression or know what depression is. There's so many people in my life that have experienced what I go through and just have no clue what's going on. Can't understand why I can't get out of the bed. Can't understand why all of a sudden it's like the lights just turned off and I am stuck in this negative place and I can't get myself out. It's really scary. It can be really scary to be stuck in that moment. And I really believe, because when you're in that moment, it has a lot to do with also addiction too. When you're in that moment, willpower is not going to kick in. You know, where you have to use your willpower is preventative. And that's why people do, with addiction, people do the 12-step program. It's a preventative program. And people have things like this, the 6 steps that I'm going to go over. It's preventative work. So, TLC, therapeutic lifestyle change. What I really respected, I think, the most about this book and all of his studies is that he went back to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. And I'm a firm believer in the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. I believe that as human beings, we didn't have all of this technology to begin with, and we weren't really meant to have a lot of the man-made things that we have nowadays. So I really believe that the world and us as human beings were created to be self-sufficient, and that we already have all of the tools that we need and all of the resources here naturally. So I really, really respected that a lot, that this is a man that, is in the medical field and also really believes in natural living. He says you can do this. It says right on the front of the book, a 6-step program to beat depression without drugs. Very important. If you are currently taking antidepressants, do not take yourself off. It is so dangerous to do that. But if you think you want to kind of do this naturally, speak to your doctor. He or she will wean yourself off of these meds safely. So consult your doctor before you change. But the cool thing about this is that you can do it while you're on meds as well, because it's completely natural. So the first step that he talks about is the diet in hunter-gatherers. Now, the majority of their diet consists of fish and omega-3 fatty acids. So it's actually been proven in studies that the concept that, or what fish oil will do for you, or omega-3 fatty acids, it actually is like an anti-inflammatory for your brain. And the inflammatory, or the flaming up of your brain, is what causes this sort of depressive symptoms. So getting some omega-3 fatty acids in your diet every single day is extremely important. If you can't do that, get a high-grade fish oil. Again, consult your doctor before you do so. But eating a lot of fish, eggs, organic eggs, super important. And it really will make a difference. A lot of times I notice if I've been sort of slowly trailing into a little bit of a depression, I'll notice, oh, I haven't taken my fish oil in like 2 weeks. So it's been proven in my life. I, by the way, read this book like 4 years ago, and I've been doing all of these things for the last 4 years. And when I notice that I haven't been doing them, I notice that I start to get a little bit, it gets harder to be happy. So the next one, step 2, is an engaging activity. So many times we are doing these numbing activities where we're watching boring television, we're stuck in traffic, even like social networking. Like, we could be in a room full of people and we're all on our phones just doing this numbing activity. But what he talks about is what happens is when we're doing these boring activities, these sort of numbing activities, we go into this thing called rumination. And it's one of the biggest issues with depression, is that every single person that has depression goes into a rumination where you are stuck in negative thoughts and you are just running them again and again and again in your mind. How many times have you woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning and not been able to go back to sleep because you can't stop thinking? It is like an obsession. It really is an addiction. And an engaging activity, something that brings you into the now. So for me, I mean, really for me, like talking to friends, having a really connecting conversation, for me, doing things like this, just me doing this video is super engaging. I have to be aware. Doing shows when I'm performing on stage, because I'm a singer, that's a very engaging activity for me. Journaling, writing, playing music, those are all very engaging activities for me. If I take a walk, some people this could be numbing, but for me, when I take a walk and I sort of marvel in nature, that's a very engaging activity for me. So that engaging activity to get yourself out of your head and into the now. Okay? Number 3, this is a no-brainer, physical exercise. You got to get some cardio in. I mean, it's been proven for many years that physical exercise releases serotonin. You get the dopamines going in your brain, which is the same thing, same purpose of your antidepressants. It's to release dopamine into your brain and the serotonin levels, raise your serotonin levels. So physical exercise, so important. Daily physical exercise. And you really you don't want to push yourself to an extent, but you want to be working. I mean, it's got to be a workout. You know, for me, I can't just go for a walk and that be a workout. You got to get that heart rate up. For everybody, it's different. If maybe you're a little bit older and going for a brisk walk is a real workout for you. Maybe you're a runner and you have to run 10 miles before you really feel like you got a workout in. It's really going to be specific to you and your body and where you already are with physical exercise in your life. It is so unbelievably important. Yoga is amazing. There are some yogas that can kind of get your heart rate up a little bit more. I think it's really important. What I've noticed in my own life is getting my heart rate up, and that cardiovascular workout is so important with my mood. Not only does it affect my mood, it affects my sleep, which is so important. And that's actually the last step in this 6-step process. So, step number 4. This was an interesting one to me. Sunlight exposure. And not for the reason that you think. What we know, well, some of us may know, is that many people nowadays, especially in America, have a vitamin D deficiency. Right? So we would think that that's what it has to do with, or vitamin C, or the vitamins that we're getting. Actually, what happens is getting that sunlight, it kind of tells your body, your internal clock, like, okay, it's time to wake up now, because our body works with the sunlight. I really thought it had something to do with the vitamin C and all of that, vitamin D, but it didn't. So I was really interested in that. Now, if you're like me and I live in the Northeast, we have 4 seasons here. If you have winter seasons, usually the northern hemisphere, you will probably have or will experience some sort of seasonal depression in your lifetime. Reason being is we're not getting the sunlight that we need. So, what he suggests is actually if you're having trouble sleeping, I think it was if you're getting a little too much sleep, because I get too much sleep. With depression, I tend to oversleep. As soon as you wake up, within 30 minutes of waking up, you want to get about 30 minutes of adamant sunlight. So what I do is I wake up and I walk my daughter to the school bus. It's a nice walk for me. It's only a block and a half. It's not a big deal, but it gets me that ample sunlight and lets my body know it's time to wake up. Another thing that I thought was really important is to not get, if you're having trouble getting to sleep, not get too much sunlight late in the day, because your body is working with the daylight. There's also these machines, these like infrared light machines. I literally saw one at like Rite Aid. So, you know, your drugstore down the street probably sells one. And it gives you this ample sunlight where if you're in a winter month in the Northeast, like myself, lives, in Pennsylvania, then you can do this cool little infrared light machine for 30 minutes and your body kind of, your internal clock is kind of set. So the next one is another no-brainer. I mean, these are kind of like really simple, other than a few of them. These are really simple things. And it's just getting back to the basics of living that lifestyle that a hunter-gatherer would have lived. And really thinking about that and how much that affects your mental and emotional stability. Okay, next one is social support. This is huge and such a no-brainer, but as depression, what happens is we isolate ourselves. We tend to separate ourselves. And we don't want to do that. That is the opposite of what we want to do. What we want to do is spend time with people that support us, people that we love, people that we can talk to. That's another engaging activity. Talking to a friend about what they did that day or a funny story. You know, it doesn't have to be you confiding in them, but it's also important to have people that you can call on when you're kind of like, okay, depression is hitting right now. I can feel it creeping up. Hey, what are you doing? And have some friends. So what he suggests is actually making a list of some people that you can really depend on and kind of keeping that list and going to it if you do go into this depressive episode. Last but not least, and I already mentioned this a little bit earlier, sleep. Your exercise, your diet, and your amount of sunlight during the day, and getting that ample sunlight during the day. Sorry, there's a big truck driving by. Getting that ample sunlight during the day, that is going to affect your sleep. Don't eat food late at night. Eating those proper 3 meals a day, snacking in between. Our body is meant to work with the day. It's a progression. It's ever changing, and we have to kind of go with it. And that's what happens in depression, is that we want to kind of like stop living and curl up into this ball and stop living the way we're supposed to and stop moving with that constant changing. But we can't stop that. That's going to just continue. That's how life is. So, there's your 6 steps. This video was a little bit longer than the last few. One last thing that I think is huge that he puts in this book, and this is why you should really get this book. At the very end of the book, he's got this depression scale where you answer these questions, right? And then you can track, there's another truck driving by, and then you can track, here's a little tracking scale, you can track your progress. How depressed are you? Are you starting to feel better? Have you been living this life, right? So it's like, did I feel lonely at all this week? Did I enjoy life at all this week? Did I have a crying spell? Did I feel depressed? And you're doing this on a scale of 0 to 3 every week. That is huge. If you are just at the beginning of starting to heal yourself of your depression, this is huge. This is something my therapist gave me paper every single day that I would, this little workbook paper that I would fill out, worksheet, every day, a scale 1 to 10, how I felt in the morning, how I felt at night, what I did differently. You want to track these things, get to know yourself. It is so important. And even if you never look back on the things that you've been doing, just tracking that is staying focused, staying in the now, and really being aware. That's huge. We're right back to that spirituality. Awareness is so unbelievably huge. And you become the observer and not the ego. And you start to figure yourself out. And then you're not so troubled. And really, when you read a book like this and you understand what depression is, it's not so painful. And you understand like, oh, okay, well, that's just the depression. That's not me. That's just the depression. And you don't have to... You know, the ego, really, if you have depression, the ego has bought into this concept of depression and really wants to be validated in having this mental illness. And it's just the ego's fight to stay alive. It's really all it is. No big deal. I know that oversimplifies things. But grab this book. I hope those tips kind of helped you a little bit. You can grab this book at the link below this video on DariaWaken.com or in the shop at DariaWaken.com. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful week and a wonderful life. And really, test these steps out. See you guys next week.
Look how far I've come. I was just like you, lost and alone, searching for love. And no matter how hard I tried, it was no use. Did God just hate me? But I was just like you, lost and alone.